Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to If You Have to Explain the Joke podcast.
It's good to be back.
Great to be back.
Great, yes.
I'm fine.
So it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag this morning.
Today, we're doing Joan Rivers, Abroad in London, 1992 special. You can find it on YouTube.
Is that a play on words?
I think so.
Like abroad in London?
Oh.
Because I remember thinking that and being like, that's probably her doing. Like, she did that on purpose, right?
I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
I wish she had spelled it that way.
Yeah,
I said
maybe.
this last night, Aaron, when we were watching it. But it's fine.
To yourself.
Did you jot that down in your notes? But anyway, it's pretty funny.
Initial thoughts, how did everybody feel? I was really into it.
Yeah.
I was really like, her banter, I don't know, it's like my grandmother, but funnier.
Just a quick comment to the audience. This was 1992. So if we can get in that headspace of the early 90s.
That's
To the year most of us were born.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're
Sorry, AJ.
making our way out to the world.
Don't apologize to me. I feel fine being older than y'all.
I respect Joan Rivers a lot and what she stands for and how hard she hustled. If you've ever researched her, you know that she has tirelessly worked at being a stand-up comedian. So I think, going into this, having that baseline respect for her and her craft, I had some problems that we'll talk about throughout the hour today, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was entertaining.
Alexis?
I thought it was entertaining. I love her way of talking. Like, she's just a quick talker. She never stopped the entire time. She was just yapping away the entire time. I love her voice. I love her New York accent. I think it just makes things so sparkly, and her eyes are great. She even had some really great facial expressions at times that I thought were really fun. Some of the content was, maybe outdated, but at the same time, the best part about it to me was that she was a woman, and it was very much female centered, and we can get into that a little more, but that was great.
We'll get into the content, but do you feel like she was not doing justice to women? Because a lot of the content is her being look pretty, don't worry about anything, just marry a man for rich, second marriages are all about money. That was
Get that jewelry.
and get that diamond. And do you feel like that was to me, I think it was riddled in satire, obviously.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then also there was something kind of empowering to me at least, about understanding the game. She was she's I'm manipulating these fucking men. I'm taking everything. I don't care. This is how I get my leg up, whatever.
When she was talking about, she was talking, well, I don't know if you want to get into specific jokes yet, but she was,
go for it.
when she was talking about Jackie Onassis, who first husband was John F. Kennedy. Second husband was whoever Onassis, this nasty old. She actually was he's farty, shitty, pukey, nasty, fatty. But I would have sex with him and just be basically shopping the whole time. Tomorrow I'll be at Gucci. Tomorrow I'll be shopping at the Chanel store.
She says,
that was so funny. And kind of along the lines of Miss Ali Wong trapping their asses, when both of those comedians are definitely very successful, hardworking, intelligent.
That's the other part of this.
Outspoken and smart. She was talking about being dumb. Please.
Right. That's the part that makes it satirical. She is a hardworking, independent woman who basically, is saying the opposite of how she actually behaves. So to my mind, it works.
Aaron, what did you think?
I had a very good time. I thought that it was a fairly fast 58 minutes. Sometimes with these hours, they kind of drag, as per our last episode. But this was an entertaining 58 minutes. I didn't have any hard belly laughs where I cried.
Same.
Not to go back to Jeselnik, but he still had me in tears at one point. That's like my indicator of was there that moment, and she didn't have that moment for me, but she was constantly just throwing out jokes. I do like how kind of unscripted she felt. She has a really good way of getting to her jokes in a very organically seeming way, to where I'm just like, wait, this is clearly like she set this up and she like manipulated the words to get to where she wanted to talk about.
Right.
But every time I was still surprised that she was able to get there.
I was saying this to Michael, I feel like she's one of like the most fun people to have a cup of coffee with, because she will steer conversations towards her jokes and you will just be cackling because she's just sharp and she's just rambling off. She's got a million one-liners. I feel like she's the kind of person that has never forgotten a joke that she's written, so she can just whip everything out of her little bag of tricks. Like, yeah.
On the flip side of what you just said, Aaron, there were some points where she completely just there was no rhyme or reason to like what she was saying, and I also didn't really laugh out loud at anything, but I did like.
I didn't say laugh out loud. It's not the big ones.
I noticeably chuckled at one point, and I'm sorry to go out of order, but there was one point she was talking about. I don't even remember what she was talking about. She was, on a topic, and then all of a sudden you see her face turn to someone in the audience, and out of nowhere she goes, "Do you douche?" And I was just like, there was no reason for that. There was no structure. Like, she wasn't calling back to something. She was just asking if she douched, and I thought that was also very like. It was almost strategic of her in a way, because like it made me laugh. It came out of nowhere.
On the like list of things you look for in like a great comedy set, I do feel like she hit everything. There's physical comedy, there is one-liners, there is narrative. She is like she is doing callbacks. When she keeps going, is she here? Whenever she name drops somebody, is she here? Like callbacks. Yeah. The vibrator joke callback at the very end after the credits roll. Like. Every part of it was a piece of something that makes a great set, which to me is like, damn, she is prolific. Because at this point, she's been doing, in 92, she'd been doing comedy for 30 years, right? Like, yeah. Like she's just...
For almost 40 years, probably 35 to 40 even, because she took her a couple of years to get on late night. But AJ, do you feel like you...
I can kind of do a rundown of her life. Is that what you were looking for?
Sure. Go for it.
What were you looking for?
I was just making sure you got your piece in of did you like this set, which I...
I liked it. I think I was trying to say, like, I will say there was parts that had me, like, truly laughing out loud and crying, but, like, truly, like, damn, that was fucking funny. I love watching these old things, especially for somebody that has all these references, because I'm sitting there with Wikipedia open, like, who is this person? Who is that person? Too. Like, I was crying at just some of the stupid, like, when you realize what the reference is after you understand who the person is, like, that was killing me. I don't know, I was really enjoying myself watching this.
Yeah.
I can do the rundown of her history, actually.
Please.
Okay, go for it.
So, because I read a lot about her last night and this morning, and I found some pretty funny anecdotes. First of all, she's obviously a great Jewish gal from New York, and she was born with like some Jewy last name, like Mankiewicz or something.
So her name is Joan Malinsky, and she was born in 1933.
So it was not Mankiewicz.
Schwartzberg style.
So she had an agent who was like, "You need to change your name because your last name is too long," and the agent's name was like,
some Jewish shit.
We call it to the Torah, Joan Big Bonowitz.
So anyway, her agent told her she needed to change her last name, and the agent's name was like Dawn Rivers, and she was like, "I'm gonna take Rivers," and he was like, "Okay." She went on to be in Second City in Chicago, which we watched something else, and she was talking about like how Chicago is just like the perfect litmus test for your comedy. It's not the East, it's not the West. Some would say it's the Midwest, but.
I mean, it looks like she spent most of her time in stand-up doing it in Greenwich Village. Again, she was coming up with George Carlin, Woody Allen, Richard Pryor.
Lenny Bruce.
This is all in the late 50s, early 60s.
And that is to say, like, watching this last night, any sort of, like, feminist response I might have to certain things that she said that might be, like, feels like it was wrong or whatever, now all of it is completely canceled out by the fact that like Joan Rivers, her legacy is that she was like fearless in this genre of comedy. Like she was one of these women who really went out there, said it all, like made it like female centered, like I'm talking about, and just like said what she needed to say. I mean, she's talking last night about all these things. You have to be pretty, you have to be this, you have to be that. Don't you hate farting? Like she was talking about farting for like a good 15 minutes.
She's working in fart jokes. She's working in tampon jokes. Like she is talking about when she is talking about Jackie Onassis' husband, and she is saying for $65 million, I would even talk a little bit. Move. Like, talking about, like...
She was, like, talking shit about some girl, and that she was, like, a bull dyke or something. Yeah. Like, she was using that phrase.
She was talking about the musicians. She was talking about all of the musicians.
Yeah, she was
in
making
the
orchestra, like, lesbians.
Yeah,
they were all
14 men. Yeah, 14 men.
I didn't really get it, but I was like,
I think it's a 1992 thing of just, like, saying the word lesbian, and
that's what we were discussing. She is a big advocate and presence in the gay community, but in 92, like, I think she was trying to throw the conversation in Britain's face. I think she's like, we're gonna talk about lesbians. Like,
I didn't see that when I was watching it, but it does make sense now because who else is gonna rock the boat than Joan Rivers?
Yeah.
Well, a little bit more background. Right before this, she mentioned how she was a widow and she was single. Mm-hmm. So she got married, and her husband, she asked for a separation from her husband, and 4 days later he committed suicide.
Right.
And this is also like 5 months after their show got canceled. So let's back it up a little bit more. She goes on to Johnny Carson in 1965 for the first time, and he says, you're going to be a star, which is like a huge thing for Johnny Carson to say. They get a really nice relationship. She gets she's the first woman to host a late night talk show.
Well, can we say she became like a staple hosting his show? She became the only like guest host whenever he would take off. That's like a big thing, to become that person that's like, I'm Johnny Carson's stand-in, basically.
Right. I mean, I think he had a few circulating.
At one point she became the permanent.
Okay.
And then she got offered her own late night show on Fox. And Carson never spoke to her again, apparently.
Yeah, they were like best friends for 20 years, and then never spoke to her again.
Well, not only didn't speak to her ever again, didn't invite her back onto the Tonight Show.
Well,
and it was like stipulated, like Leno and O'Brien didn't invite her back either.
First time she came back to the Tonight Show was with Fallon.
2014, the year she died. Yeah,
which is wild.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So she won. She had a comedy album that was Grammy nominated in '83. Her show was in '86 and ended in '87. She was on the air for like 6 months before they basically said, we want to fire your husband. She said no. They both get fired, and then the husband commits suicide 5 months later.
Whoa.
And then after her husband commits suicide, she got like bulimia, and then she became like best friends with her therapist, her psychologist, who died of AIDS, like right in the same time frame.
She's trauma
and so she went on to be very like into donating and doing all this stuff for like AIDS and the LGBT.
But I gotta say, it does not seem very professional to become best friends with your psychiatrist.
What do you mean?
She becomes a cranky old lady for sure, who's just like kind of being mean and bitter by the end. But here's a pretty good spot for her. I will say, going back to Abroad in London to our set, the Queen and Princess Di are there?
No, actually they're not. No. They're impersonators.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
100%. They would have made a way bigger deal.
Me and Aaron thought they were real.
They look very good.
The Queen is like, I was pretty sure they didn't blindfold the Queen.
I was telling AJ this earlier, but the beginning part of the special reminded me so much of just like remote field like production that they used to do on Letterman, where they would do like a satellite shot, they would add it in, they would show like random people sitting in the audience, but it wasn't live.
Sure.
It was just like,
can I say one thing I laughed really hard at in that?
Yeah.
So she like starts off in her talk show with some weird guest, and then
Barry Humphries is the comedian, and he's like dressed up in drag as this character that he like I guess was well known for.
Dame whatever.
With the lady who's
Dame Edna.
So basically they're like they're like, oh, tomorrow's the Queen's birthday, and Joan Rivers is like, oh my God, I have the same birthday as her. Oh my God, I have to go.
Liz.
We have to go party with Liz, basically. So then it's like pulls out. She goes to London. She's like running around London, going to all these stores. The first time I laughed was when she goes into like a sex toy store and she's like buying gifts for the queen, and she's like, yeah, I need a turbo-powered, extra large, and then she like comes out and is like, I got it!
It's like a big poster too.
Humongous thing.
Giant.
I mean, think in 1992, those Brits especially, they love their queen. That's like pretty
salacious.
Ooh. Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's a decent intro. Like I don't know what the intros were kind of like back then, but this is a pretty good
I
one.
love a good field piece.
Yeah.
Before we jump entirely into the set,
Yeah.
can I read two? This is like the fun fact section on Wikipedia that just had 2 sentences that were incredible. It's Rivers is one of the only 4 Americans invited to the wedding of Prince Charles's second marriage to Camilla Bowles. First sentence. Second sentence. Rivers was a licensed gun owner in New York City until she was threatened with loss of license after an altercation with a rental car owner or clerk in 2002. What the fuck was happening at that rental car
Did
place?
they not expound on that?
That was the whole sentence.
Okay.
Well, listen, if the gun carrying and the very free speech, fuck your feelings vibes weren't clear, later in life she was definitely a Republican.
Really?
Yeah.
Republicans.
Hold on, I didn't
You've got
know
a
that.
fellow.
Yeah.
Well,
a fellow one.
yeah, she was a Republican.
She said some weird stuff. I started watching her Netflix special that's from 2010, 2012. And her first bit of jokes is about Mexicans, and it's not great.
Yeah.
Wait, and one more question before we get into the actual jokes.
Do you guys have proof that it wasn't the Queen and Princess Di, by the way?
Yeah, I just looked it up. They were impersonators.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
You sent me that article.
Yeah, I couldn't
I'm
find
not
anything.
Also, though, the Queen would not have gone to a Joan Rivers.
Well,
I don't know.
I
They're
don't
friends.
know.
She was invited to the wedding.
the Queen, I was like pretty certain, okay, they're not blindfolding the Queen, that's a gag, great. It's part of the special, great, she comes on stage. But then they just side cut to random 2 people that look exactly like Charles and Diana with no context. And it's like, they're not sitting in the same row as the fake Queen, whatever. It's just like, why would they plant 2 people that look exactly like Diana and Charles for no context? There was no reference.
And those are some good fucking lookalikes.
Yeah. I don't believe so.
I can't
Featured
go
celebrity
further.
impersonators of the royal family in attendance, including Kathy Burden, Christina Hans as Princess Diana.
I don't know. Okay, where's what article? Who's the source?
Ask Jeeves.
This is like I would.
Many times.
I can't get over this Republican thing, so let me read this one quick thing about what her daughter Melissa said about if she had been alive. Can someone check on this? If she was alive for Trump?
No, she was dead. She died in 2014.
So it says
He was alive.
Melissa, her daughter, said she knew them both, speaking of Trump and Hillary Clinton. Our families had a very long outside of the spotlight relationship with the whole Trump family. I think in the beginning she would have been like, yes, great, 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 super. And then she would have been like, oh shit, as he came closer to the presidency. So I think probably, as with many people we know, she was financially very much to the right. And then as she saw a lot of that play out, she would have been like...
Also, like modern Republicans are different than like being Republican in 1992 or in the 60s, which you know.
She was good friends with Nancy Reagan.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
You guys, how did you know Joan Rivers? Because personally, for probably like middle school to college, I watched a lot of like E!
Oh yeah, she was the host.
She was on like the Fashion Police, where the day after the red carpet, she would just sit there. They'd pull up pictures of celebrities last night in their outfits,
shit on
and she was fucking savage. Okay, like at times really fucked up and mean. Like we watched something with her, and she was saying like Adele, calling Adele fat and all.
Yeah, I mean that's why I was curious about watching this.
She was very funny, very like sexualized, and I always thought, wow, this bitch.
She's been in the
great.
persona. Like I've always heard of Joan Rivers, and I used to love watching the late night shows, but I would always watch Conan, and I guess she wasn't on Conan because of the NBC stuff, so I didn't really know her from there. But we all knew of Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us has ever watched a set of her. So.
No. And I'm not comparing her by any means, but I wondered, like, how is it possible to create a whole career by being similar to, like, a Perez Hilton? just like being like a queen of mean. I know that she started being
stand up isn't funny. It doesn't.
Well, no, and I'm not trying to compare them, but I was.
Are you missaying Paris?
No,
yeah, I knew you wouldn't know who that was.
He's like a mean blogger.
Sweet.
Like that's how he made his career.
But she also started in 60s. Like she wasn't always like this. She was kind of like a little raunchy and risque as a woman in 1965. She gets dirty and dirtier as she gets older. So like,
you guys been watching Miss Maisel at all? I couldn't help but think about this small Jewish woman in Greenwich Village in the early 60s hanging out with like Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and just being vulgar and being like,
that's who they say Maisel is after.
Yeah, she's like in that one of the few people that's based off of. But right, like I'm picturing Joan Rivers now, like, you know, talking about her mom's brisket and then going up on stage later that night and just like making fart jokes, you know? Like,
let's get into the set, guys.
Okay.
We haven't been in it already?
I thought it set a good tone when the announcer.
We're talking more backstory.
Yeah. I thought it set a good tone when the announcer asked everybody to not take photos and to not smoke, and then she over the mic was like, you paid for tickets, smoke if you want to smoke, take pictures if you want to take pictures. Like, I thought that was like, all right, this is a tone setter.
Yes. Yeah. She uses that line too of like the best comedian in her price range. She uses that for other sets too. So that's her like coming on line where she walks into that.
Holding a large black furry coat, which she just wouldn't drop off for like a little too long.
Yeah.
Just hanging on to that thing.
She later says she found that in the bag.
She's such a glamour queen. Like, just her outfit. We'll get the outfit change at the end was
that was impressive. I think she just got hot. Like, I'm not sure if that was completely planned. Maybe it was. She started talking about her boobs and she took it off. But I think she just is walking around the whole time.
So the first part where I started laughing, obviously they start talking about like the lesbians in the orchestra who are actually all men, but whatever.
Right.
She starts talking about somebody who's really butch. And this is where I'm like, wow, this is just like a woman making like women-centered jokes. But it's funny to everybody where she says, she was tough. She used a brick for a tampon. She douched in Gatorade. She had her vibrator on a kickstand. I mean, those are all like girl things, but it's so funny.
Yeah, she's talking about Zsa Zsa Gabor going to jail, which apparently she went to jail for like slapping a police officer. She spent 3 nights in jail and was said in an interview, I'm worried about going to jail because of all the lesbians. And then she says, there's no lesbians in jail, they're all in pro tennis. Yeah. And then starts going off about all these pro tennis players.
She brought a person on stage and proceeded to like fondle her.
Yeah.
That would
the woman's name
not fly.
The woman's name was Karen, so I felt like it was fine.
She
got what she deserved.
She was doing it as part of her like lesbian bit. Like, you know what lesbians are, right? Like women that like women, and then she's like touching on her butt and
that was funny.
She put this Karen woman through the fucking ringer. Yeah. Like the entire set, she kept coming back, show me the ring. You're not married. Like,
she shits on her ring.
It was funny, but to what Alex said, like 100% would not fly right now.
Karen does some good physical comedy in that bit though. Karen like jumps out of the way. I thought that was pretty good on Karen's part.
Then she asked her where she lives, says, I live in Essex. Asks the audience, do we like Essex? Yeah. The whole audience boos, and she goes, why would you live there?
She's like, is it shitty?
She's like, do Jews live in Essex or something? What did she say about that?
She was like talking about being Jewish. She does that. Yeah. That's a pretty consistent throughout this set in her
life. I kind of thought was funny.
Yeah. I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with like some Jack humor.
She's going on about second wives should always be about the money. If you're marrying a second marriage for love, you're an idiot. And then
before she says that, she says the ring stuff, right?
Well, she shits on this woman's ring, and then she finds out, she goes, you're a second wife? You must be terrible in bed.
Lays into her.
Yeah. I do like, though, she goes through the different religions and how you can tell who's, like, what religion someone is based on the size of their ring, the quality of their ring. I thought that was pretty good. I don't know how true that is, but, yeah, it's funny.
She asked the woman, how long have you been married?
Damn straight. Yeah.
She asked the woman, how long have you been married? The woman says, too long. And she goes, well, what's too long? 3-4 months?
Yeah, the whole, I mean, she really would not give up on the orchestra lesbian thing. That was
She was like, the first time you married for love, but you learned. The second time, you marry for money. Any woman that sleeps around without jewelry, you're a fool. Without jewelry, you're a slut and a tramp. You got a ring, you got a pin, you got something.
I will say that her voice, there's something about her body and her voice and kind of like a disassociation between the two that I find strange. Like sometimes like her voice doesn't like match her body, or like she's a Jew, she's like a, you know, but she's got this like super blonde hair, which I guess is dyed. I don't know, right? But like she just like kind of looks Jewish. She kind of looks fake because of all the plastic surgery. She also just like looks, she's like tiny but super like I don't know. There's something about herself that is strange and fascinating to look at.
Yeah. And it's 92, but she looks cut out of a different era. Like she looks like she's, you know, from the 20s, 40s, whatever.
And that's why it was hard to look away. Like you were always just looking at her, assessing, you know, exactly what you just said about like how do you exist.
And back to going what you said, Michael, where like sometimes she either does like a non sequitur or just like kind of she talks so fast that sometimes she forgets what she is saying.
I wrote that in my notes. Is I said in all caps, she talks so incredibly fast. Wow, which I think is also like part of her genius.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say part of her Jewish.
Well, yeah, I mean, part of that too, but also I thought it was like just part of her charm was the fact that she's talking so fast, but like she knows, like she has an idea of what she's saying and it's funny and it lands.
Yeah.
But you can miss a word if you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
This is like the first thesis of the set. She has a line. She says, "Every woman needs to think like a second wife. Grab and take, grab and take." She says, and then I'm gonna get buried in it. If the next bitch wants it, she can dig me up, which I love.
I loved that too. That was amazing.
Did you guys feel like the audience was laughing a lot at her jokes? Because I, at a certain point in the beginning, was like, I wonder if the audience thinks this is funny. Because like I saw them laughing, they had audience shots, but it wasn't like raucous laughter.
I think it came and went. I think at this point they're like shocked and uncomfortable.
That's what I thought too, is that people were like, holy shit, like she's talking about douches and like jewelry.
At this point she's saying like, you know, I don't like to cook, I don't like to clean, I exercise so that I can get men. And this is the first joke that I was like, okay, that was fucking funny to me, is she makes the orchestra do 13 jumping jacks with her. She's talking about exercise. She says, we're going to do 13 jumping jacks in honor of Cher's new boyfriend. It's his age. She goes, and then the first time she says the joke, is she here? Which is a callback. She goes, is she here?
That shit.
And she goes, look for a woman. Well, she always says, is she here? And then she says what to look for. Yeah. She goes, look for a woman who's nursing her date.
She said something about a fetus.
Oh yeah, she went on a double date with her and Cher, and it was awkward because Cher brought a fetus.
Yeah. I was like, tell us how you really feel about
She
Cher.
cruises for guys at Toys R Us.
Yeah. That joke got a big laugh. That one did.
And then we get into fart jokes.
She did a lot of shitting on other women.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Alexis did like a 30-minute deep dive into Katharine Hepburn this morning.
And her shakes.
Oh man, that was the one joke that I laughed the hardest. I mean, well,
but
yes,
it was good.
Sad, but
like it was funny. I didn't know that Katharine Hepburn had these like tremors late in her life.
Neither did Joan Rivers, apparently.
No, Joan Rivers did know that. That's why she was making fun of her.
I know. The point was that she didn't clarify it. And
so I didn't know that Katharine Hepburn had the shakes either, and I wasn't laughing at the shakes. What I laughed at was her bit about like, here's how Katharine Hepburn walks during an earthquake.
And
that was hilarious.
And I was like, that is very funny.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, I enjoyed that, and also had to Google Katharine Hepburn shakes.
Does anybody have a favorite fart joke that she made? She went on about 8 fart jokes.
She was just so endearing when she says, you know, I can't even like do her voice because
you do it.
I love her voice. I think her voice is amazing.
Just try it.
She's like, the noisy surprise fart in the middle of a conversation. You're like, who did that? Me! Ah!
I like she says, I was in Tijuana last month. I farted so bad I got windburn in my ass.
Okay, I like when she said, except when you're wearing pantyhose because you fart and the ankles will blow up.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite. That was fart joke, yeah.
Like, she's making consistent pantyhose
And then
jokes.
she's like, what pantyhose? Look at that. And she's like, oh, it just happened.
Like, the fact that she was joking about how pantyhose is always, like, down, like, low. I don't know if you guys understand that, but, like, That was fucking so
I'm
true.
not well versed.
She's like, my friend had her baby in her pantyhose and had no idea the baby was like.
That's
I mean,
cool.
that's just hilarious.
So from there we get to her talking about picking up dog shit.
Yeah.
Is that the next part?
She talks about epilady, or does she?
Oh right, the pubes. She's talking about trimming her pubes.
I mean, she's just going off about all these things that
Did
like
anyone look up epilady?
are shitty for women.
She's a 60-year-old woman in this bit, or like 59 years old, talking about like shaving her pubes up into a smiley face. I was just like, if this isn't women's empowerment, what is?
Yeah, and then she's like fucking with her dog. She's like, yeah, do a little smiley face, and then I'm just like, here. Rockets her pelvis around. And then I actually thought it was pretty funny when she's talking about her daughter and how
she's
she
like
had to
in her
be like,
20s.
Mr. Chucky died this morning, and she's being really sympathetic. But then she does this thing where she like turns to the side and like out of the side of her mouth, she's like, I drowned the motherfucker. Nobody shits on my white rug.
Yeah.
And then she goes, do you know that hamsters can tread water for 2.5 hours?
And then she's like,
Wait, that's funnier to me now. Why?
and then they're like grabbing onto the corners of the toilet, like,
Yeah.
please let me out.
She's diabolical.
Then she gets into the Philippines.
That got me really hard.
Yeah.
The claws on the side of the toilet. It was she did a very good imagery with that
Yeah.
one. I
Yeah.
really saw that in my head. That was good.
She says I would never hurt an animal. That's why I can't go to the Philippines. You know, they eat dog there. And then, then she gets her second "Is she here?" where she says she says something about the
neighbor?
Philippines, and then she says I'm neighbors with Imelda Marco, who I didn't know who that was at the time.
No idea. Who is it?
She is
Assuming a Filipino.
She is the wife of the former president of the Philippines, who they like are shunned from the country. They stole like $6 billion from the public and fled to California. And she's just talking about how this woman's her neighbor and is a terrible singer.
Well, she makes a joke within that piece that, I mean, you could argue
Is offensive?
is very offensive.
But I thought it was funny.
No, I was just about to say I thought it was pretty funny.
It was funny.
She said she was talking about Filipinos eating dogs, it's part of their culture, and she would say, you know, my neighbors, whenever they come over, I see my dog covered in shake and bake all of a sudden.
Oh, and then I say, and she's always like, I don't need dogs, and I'm like, I see that leash hanging out your lip.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
This is the second "Is she here?" She says, "Is she here? Look
Yeah.
for a woman with big hair whose husband is still in it."
Start talking about Yoko Ono did damn good as a second wife.
Yes, she says.
She also does weird. I like her fake orgasms because they're funny.
Oh, yeah.
They're funny and not sexual. So like
Yeah.
you can just like fully. It's like a pure joke.
This is the first physical comedy where I was like, "Oh fuck, that is so good." When she's talking about Yoko Ono, she's talking about Yoko who had to fake an orgasm. And she says, every woman needs to know how to fake an orgasm. It's common courtesy. Guys are doing all the work. So she's just doing this, ooh, ooh, ooh. But she starts, like, licking her mouth. She's looking at her nails. She's so
Shining her shoes.
She's super uninterested. I think at one point she bit her toenail off.
Yeah,
She's just, like, doing, like, ooh, 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 ooh. Like,
The orgasm, it was funny.
Yeah, I bet it was hilarious.
Yeah, it was a good fake orgasm. I
And
feel
at
like
the same
other
time, while
comedians
she-
have done fake orgasms, and it's like it's a hard line to blur. And even Alexis was just like, "What is she doing with the ooze?" But like, because it's just so, it's something that the SNL impersonators say of like, it doesn't have to be like a spot on impersonation for it to be funny, right? You take one aspect of this idea and you like focus in on that, and that's why it becomes funny. And I think she does a really good job of that with the fake orgasm.
I agree. Couldn't agree more.
And what was funny about that as well is that as she's like checking her nails and doing all this stuff, she's like, right there, doing great.
You're the best.
Don't stop.
Yeah, it was so fucking funny.
And then does she parlay into like the whole single girls bit after that?
So then she goes into being stupid and how men don't like smart women. No man will ever put his hand up your dress looking for a library card. The dumber, the better.
I love
She
that
did a
one.
funny little bit where she goes, that's why Southern women are the best, because they're also good at playing stupid. And
Yes.
what did she say about the eggs? Like, she's like, you know, these Southern girls did a great impression. She's like, they pretend like they can't cook or something.
I
So
can't
they're
even
like,
make soup.
yeah. They're like, the recipe for soup said take a leek and put it in there. So here you go. And it was like, urine or whatever. She did another one with an egg that was funny.
I don't have it written down. I have written down that this is another time she shits on the audience that I love, where she asks a woman who she's already found out that this woman has not been married yet. She says, "You're not married? How old are you?" But then later she comes back to her and she says, men don't like smart melon. She said, did you go to college? And the woman says, yes. She goes, that's why you're not married. Stupid over here has 3 kids. And she points at the other woman like, I was dying.
Yeah, that was funny.
Do we talk? So she talks about the pill and the coil and all these things, but I thought that best joke in that thing was she goes, I used to take the pill every time I stand up, it would drop out.
Yeah.
The coil thing was pretty fucking hilarious.
Wait,
so
with the doors, the garage doors,
is a birth control device that like they don't make anymore because it's like horrible.
Okay.
And I mean, there's just been so many iterations throughout history of like garbage, cancerous birth control forms.
Right.
The coil was one of them. So she starts talking about how she tried the pill. Every time she got up, it would drop out. I tried the coil, and I would get radio. Every time I crossed my legs, the garage doors would open.
Okay, that's funny.
Loved that joke.
Because it was like a metal
I just
coil.
cruised down like Ventura, Mulholland, and open up all the garage doors.
I thought that was hilarious.
And then a girl would come out and be like, "Rape me?"
Like thinks she's getting raped. Yeah.
Wait, like.
She talks about how her body is dropping, which. Like, okay, I understand getting old, but I didn't know it was to such an extreme.
She's about to come up with my favorite joke of the whole.
All right, go
of the
for
whole
it.
bit.
Go ahead.
She's talking about her boobs, and her boobs everything's dropping. Her boobs are dropping, and she's like, now when I go to paint my toenails, I'm like, wait, I got 12 toes, and the biggest one is taking up all the polish.
This is where she really starts rambling off one-liners. I like transcribed the entire thing because everything was making me laugh.
You're the hardest working person on the pod.
Thank you. I'm here for it. She's like talking about how she knew nothing about sex growing up. Nobody told her anything. She said, I asked my mother where I'm from. She gave me an address from Cleveland. She told me men were on top, so I bought bunk beds. On the wedding night, my husband had to give me a demonstration. I could never look a donut and a Twinkie in the face again.
I liked when she said, I went in the bathroom, got naked, and came out, and he was like, do you want me to help you with the buttons?
I'm naked.
I'm naked. Because I think that was a joke about her having no boobs.
Yes,
yeah,
right.
Yes.
Which was great.
She's talking about dating. She says, dating at this age, they show up in a hearse. Then we have to play the whole game. They call, let me check my schedule. It's so white, I'm getting snow blindness. What else did she say? That was just killing me. Like, she's got so many stupid jokes in here.
I thought it was also funny. Okay. She's talking about Jackie Onassis. She goes into that part, but at the end... Go ahead.
This is the third and my favorite.
Yes.
Is she here?
You gotta finish this.
No, there's another.
Is there? So Jackie Onassis. Is she here? Look for the woman with independent eyes looking at every guy.
That's funny. I didn't
Yeah, that was some physical comedy as well.
You guys, I don't know if we skipped over this part. I actually did not take amazing notes, but I thought it was very funny when she's like, I can tell the difference between a married woman and a single woman based on the tongue.
Yeah.
And she's like, married women talk like this. How was your day today? My day was great, thank you. Single woman talk like this. My day was great, or something. Like, I thought it was gonna be like something subtle, and she really just did it.
Just sticks out her tongue and starts babbling.
So this ties in with my favorite part of the special because she's talking about single girls and how they talk with their tongues out, and she's like, "Oh waiter, may I have another Coke?" And then she's going on about this bit, and I said this before already, but she was like, yeah, you do this and that, and then all of a sudden she pivots to someone in the audience and goes, do you douche? And it was just so like, It was my favorite part.
I love the do you douche.
The audience member says no, and she takes her stool on the other side of the stage.
Yeah. That was actually crazy though, because douching is like bad for women. You know, like this special, I'm just like, wow, the coil, the douche. These are like scientifically proven like vagina killers.
I like she says, "Do you douche?" The woman says no, moves across the stage, and then looks at her and goes, "What do you do? Stand upside down in the shower?"
Yeah, I saw that. That was funny.
There was another line that when she's talking about her body and she takes off her dress, like the top of her dress to like reveal a more like bra-esque type of dress.
Madonna situation. It was like
and she says, "Look at this dress." I look at Madonna. It looks like Madonna meets menopause.
That was a good one.
That was good.
I love that.
So I liked when she says, she starts talking about going to the gynecologist.
Oh, we're gonna skip over a part though. Okay, go ahead.
Oh no, go to it.
I was just really into when she is talking about. Oh, you're right at that. Going to the gynecologist. I'm wrong. Go ahead. Please continue.
Okay. So she's like,
no, I'm wrong. Michael, you
give
go
a
ahead.
man.
I'm wrong too.
Okay, Alexis.
You guys, suddenly I'm feeling wrong. Okay, she says, you give a man a helmet and a gun, that is not brave. You give a man a bazooka, that is not brave. Bravery is to make a gynecologist appointment and to show up. And then she talks about like how ridiculous it is, how her gynecologist makes jokes while he's there.
Dr. Schwartz at your cervix.
Yeah. There was like another one. I didn't write them all down, but there were a few little one-liners that she spewed off there that were good.
Sure.
Yeah, that was.
Then she goes into Elizabeth Taylor being fat jokes.
Well,
yes.
She makes a good point about the gynecologist, though. She's like, I'm in the stirrups, I'm facing towards the door with the sheet in, and the door is open, and everyone can see my like kibbles and bits. You know?
She's like, there's always that one guy from high school
sitting
who's
in
like,
the waiting room.
Is that you?
Speaking of calling her fat, and this is a quick aside, but she interviewed Oprah Winfrey on the Tonight Show once and gotten some hot water for calling her heavy, like on live TV.
Damn.
Yeah, and then she's like, guys have it easy. They go to a proctologist and they're facing the wrong way. They get to a daydream. Like, no, I'm not going to tell you the secrets of Russian spies. Nazis.
And then she went into like how she's going to kill her gynecologist with her, put her mouth down there or something.
She's
Start
gonna
speaking from out there.
Squeeze real tight. And it's going to suffocate him. But she's like, I'm gonna learn how to like basically do a ventriloquist and really freak them out.
Yeah.
Throw your voice. Yeah.
Yes.
So throw your voice down there.
But it was the Elizabeth Taylor stuff. I think that as she got older in life, she got meaner. To be honest, like the Joan Rivers that I know, who was like really fucking old, was really mean. At this point, she's like more self-deprecating, and then kind of is like mean, like Elizabeth Taylor fat jokes. But then at the same time, she's like, if she had stayed fat for one more year, I would have had a new house. But she had to lose all this weight.
So I mean, it's an interesting trajectory because her early stuff is like all self-deprecating. Then she becomes famous, so it's like become like self-deprecating mixed with like celebrity culture. And then once she kind of gets too old, like it seems like, sorry, old people, if you're listening, like. I think that things just slow down and all she can really do is kind of be mean and bitter-ish and like about that celebrity culture. And so like she fully, like her late sets are all celebrity culture. Whereas this is a pretty, I would say mostly her mixed in with famous people like sprinkled in.
Yeah, but you're talking about a specific time too where it was peak shit on celebrity culture. E-entertainment is built around, have you seen what this person is wearing? I can't believe these two people were getting coffee together. Like TMZ is built.
View balls, or view balls.
All of those.
She's getting those view balls.
It's a little better than a Pokeball. It's like a step ball.
Late 90s, early 2000s, like was prime, like. It's how Britney Spears is like, lost her fucking mind and shaved her head, and I'm sure Joan Rivers was like, that's a bad look.
Although I did watch a funny interview that she had. Weird worlds colliding, but it was Joan Rivers interviewing Big Sean, the rapper.
Sick.
And she's just like, why is her...
Is this Get Into Bed With Me? Her show? Where people get into her bed and she interviews them?
No, but I kind of remember that.
Sorry, keep going.
It was just like a clip I saw online, and she was just like, why is your name Big Sean, though? And he's like, well, Joan, I have a big dick. And she was like loving it. Like all of a sudden, she was like about to... get into bed with this guy. It was the funniest thing. And she's like 85.
I like that though.
Yeah.
We skipped over a part. She's talking about, she gets into like stewardess versus nurses, and like, you know, they get all the money. Guys love stewardess. And she says, if you sit by the window, you see the earth. If you sit by the aisle, you see the moon. Talking about looking at stewardess.
But then how the stewardesses are like mean to her, like not nice to
mean
girls.
to women,
But then she gets somehow into talking about going to the bathroom and having to put she talks about her 3 things she always does. But one of them, she's talking about how she puts toilet paper over the toilet, or even where she squats sometimes when you have to. But then she gets into the physical comedy of squatting, and her legs are completely side. Like, you see all of it. She holds it for so long. That was the one part.
I almost thought she was like gonna like hurt herself.
I was crying laughing at her in that position. Like, that was so funny. She says, then you get so far into this squat that you accidentally kick the person in the other stall.
That was hilarious.
I was dying.
I'm like, real.
Sorry to get back to this In Bed with Joan show that she had. Started in March of 2013 and ended in August 2014. But she had some awesome people on the show. Sarah Silverman, Nick Kroll, Anthony Jeselnik, RuPaul, Meghan McCain.
Is this a podcast?
It's on YouTube. She's lying in a bed, and the people, her guests, are in the closet, and she introduces them. They come out, get into bed with her, and they just have a discussion. And a lot of people did this, like Jeff Ross. Bob Saget.
She is a good celebrity. You know, like, she is smart. She stays relevant throughout the years. She was able to stay relevant even when. I was reading some articles and people thought she'd be done after her show got canceled in '87. Then she ended up getting the daytime show, which won a daytime Emmy. Like, she kept reinventing herself. She was constantly okay with changing with the times. Like you said, AJ, of like, E! Got very like mean and harsh on celebrities, and she's like, oh, this is how I can get those view balls. So she kept doing it, you know?
But she was a true stand-up. And Alexis, I think you said you watched the documentary. I vaguely remember the documentary, her showing that she has a index card with every single joke that she's ever told on it. And she has like a filing system. Like, I remember she's showing the camera, like, here's a joke from 78 that I have. Like, she is a true, by definition, stand-up comedian who hustled, who took her craft really seriously. I can't imagine, like, and there were a ton of index cards. She had like a
loves jokes. I know we're not finished with the set. Can I tell you a great joke that I saw her do on Letterman?
Please.
Yes.
So she is talking about she's talking about death and how, you know, she wants to get cremated, but Jews aren't supposed to get cremated, and she's just like, I want to die like my grandfather died, peacefully in my sleep, not like the other people in the car with him. And I was just like, that is a great joke. And yeah, just that's like, I feel like her one-liners it's so interesting because we talked about taking those turns of phrases last week with Jeselnik, and I think that, not to compare and contrast, and I don't necessarily, but I do think we're building something here with this conversation about comedy. And I think like that, like, I want to die like my grandfather died, peacefully in his sleep. That is nice. We understand that. Phrase. And then the turn of phrase is not like the other people in the car with them. I just find funnier than the Jeselnik stuff for some reason, even though it's dark, like, and cynical. It's like similar in that vein. Like, I think Jeselnik wants to get to this, but because she says it with such like vigor, like, I do think that your performance as a stand-up is that physicality, how you say things. Like, she is such a showman that Jeselnik isn't, that the jokes Jeselnik has written are, you know, you could almost do a who wrote this and you couldn't be able to tell, but because he doesn't have that, his persona is like, I don't care, I'm monotone, I don't give a shit about you, and she is just so full of charisma. Like,
it's
there's
an interactive kind of comedy.
Like, I have so many from this bit that we haven't even hit because there's just too many. Like, one that I love, she's talking, you said the first half of this joke, which is she came out of the bathroom on her wedding night, and her husband was like, do you want to help you with those buttons? She says, I'm naked. She's talking more about how she's uncomfortable with her body. She says, my husband asked, can we have sex with the lights on? I'm like, no, shut the car door.
That's very funny.
Right? Again, a perfect example of what we talked about last week. And there's just something a little bit more lighthearted to it, even though it's self-deprecating, it's dark. Like, there is something where, I know last week I said, like, I don't believe that Jeselnik believes any of these things, and yeah, a lot of these things Joan is joking about and they're not true, or like, they're different iterations, but there is still something about the presentation that matters.
Sure. The last kind of piece of huge physical comedy that I was really laughing at was she's giving everybody the flowers on the stage, and then she asked the one woman, she's like, I picked on you a lot. You want a tree? And she drags that tree across the stage, and it's like she told the orchestra, don't move, like, do not help me, but I'm going to talk to you. And she keeps looking, she's like, somebody give me a hand. And then she starts pulling it, nobody moves. She's like, come on, fellas. And she's...
she's got she's potted plants, a potted tree on the stage that she's dragging, asking the orchestra for help, keeps dragging, asking for help.
And she says, fucking liberation, we did this to ourselves.
I thought that was a great line.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Great line.
Love her.
And I would say that's kind of how it ended. And
even like on her outro though, she says, I'm gonna leave you now. No, please, and stops the audience from clapping, and then nobody claps because she stopped them, so then she taps her mic, she goes, is this thing on?
And then she's like, how funny would that be if you guys were all like, yay, leave. And then in her outro, like I guess right before, she started going into an outro, and it was actually kind of sentimental, where she was like, if I can make one person laugh, that makes me laugh or smile.
With ants marching playing in the background.
And then she's like, hold on, we need some dramatic music. So she goes to the orchestra, tells them to start playing some dramatic music, but then like they start playing, she starts doing her outro again, the same monologue.
Right.
But in the middle of each sentence, she's like, louder, Larry!
Yeah.
And if I can make one person, come on in! Yeah. That was like very funny.
They start playing, she tells the band to play something, they start playing ants marching, she goes, oh, that's nice, did you write that?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I thought, that's where I'm like, she'd be so fun to hang with, is everything that happens around her, she's got a joke. When she's asked that woman her bra size and works her way all the way, she's like, 40D? Oh my God. What about the other one?
Well, the funny thing about that too was that woman was like, she just didn't really have the opportunity to be like, I'm like a 32B or whatever, like, because she was laughing so hard. So Joan just had the opportunity to be like 32, 34, 36, 40, B, C, D. Like, it just kept going on. It was so funny. Yeah. And I will say, like, it's her personality. Like, through this whole thing, I'm just like, I want to hang out with this chick.
100%.
She's freaking hilarious. And also, we watched a lot of her appearances on various talk shows. Yeah. She's very natural on a couch, like in that setting where it's like very comfortable, like friends talking, like you just want her at your party. Because she just can, like, work a room, a conversation.
There's so much banter. Like, I really feel like there's a type of comic that is built around language in a way where you can really, it's all banter. Like, if you go watch those old Lenny Bruce stuff or the George Carlin, like, these guys can chit chat and they're so smart. I really feel like you could put her in a room with an idiot or put her in a room with a rocket scientist and she can find the right banter for anybody because she just is witty as shit.
She definitely made late night hosts nervous when she was on because she could truly say anything, but I think that was also like why she was so great.
Totally.
So I'm glad we watched this special.
And one other thing I want to say is, I'm trying to figure this out, but at the time of this show, how old was she?
I think 60.
Okay. Like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. Especially, like, in the 90s and... You know, I think, like, right now we're a little more progressive with, like, aging and things like that. But, like, this woman had a full career. Like, was joking until she died. And that's just really great, especially for women when in so much of Hollywood, it's like, oh, once you shrivel up, you're worthless and go away.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Hello, this is Jimmy D from Jimmy D's Loose Doogies. We got some loose doogies for you. Come on down to my shop. I promise. We got the best loose doogies. You thought you never wanted a doogie again, right? After you had those hard doogies back when you were a kid. Well, guess what? Now it's a new era. The future is now. I got loose doogies for you. I got chocolate doogies. I got milk chocolate doogies, dark chocolate doogies, white chocolate doogies. You like doogies? I got them. Hard, soft, chewy, creamy doogies. You want them to melt in your mouth doogies? I got the melt in your mouth doogies. Look, I got doogies for you. I promise. You want caramel-filled doogies? I got it. You want cream-filled doogies? I got it. I got doogies. You want doogies. You ever sat on a doogie for a while and said, hey, why don't I eat that doogie? Well, guess what? You will not be able to not eat my doogies. That is a promise I make to you. So come on down to Jimmy D's Loose Doogies and you'll have the best doogies of your life, goddammit.